Hey everybody, I'm Emily with the Quilted Cow, and today I'm here to show you how to make the under pressure pillow accessory that is part of our Back Home Pillow series. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors. We have Husqvarna Viking machines and then Creative Grids, cutters, mats, and rulers. Let's get started. So this is part of our Back Home Pillow series. This accessory is the third month. It's the month of March, and it is called Under Pressure for the canning jars. Such a cute accessory. It is removable, so each accessory you can make each one and then put a different one on depending on what you want to decorate with in your house. These finger snaps are super easy to install and use, and you can find our kits at our website. So head on over to thequiltedcow.com, grab yourself a kit. The kit does include everything that you need to make this accessory, including the snaps, and the pattern is included in the kit. So make sure you go over there and grab that, and then we can get started making this under pressure pillow accessory. All right, so I want to warn you, there are lots of small parts and pieces, so take your time with this in the cutting. Make sure that you're cutting each piece. Label each piece as you go. If you happen to have the ABC 1, 2, 3 magic pins, these are available on our website as well. These are great because then you can just take each of your pieces and label them with the letter that it corresponds to. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of the hardest part of the whole entire thing. What I want you to do is I want you to grab a G rectangle, and the size is listed on the pattern, and also an L rectangle. And what you're going to do is you're going to draw a line on each of these white G rectangles. Now I've already sewn them onto the L rectangle the way I need them sewn. So unfortunately I don't have them separate, but what you're gonna do is draw a line from the top right corner to the bottom left corner of one of the rectangles. And then you're gonna draw a line from the top left corner to the bottom right corner of the other rectangle. It's very important that both of those lines go in opposite directions. So then you're going to place it right sides together with the L rectangles, I'm sorry. So you're going to place one of those with the one that got the top left corner to the bottom right corner. You're going to take that top left corner and place it in the bottom left corner of the L rectangle and bring it up till it just meets the top edge. It's not going to meet the other corner, it's just going to meet the top edge. Same thing with the other one where it was the top right corner that was marked on the other G rectangle. You're going to turn it so that it meets the bottom right corner of the L rectangle, of the other L rectangle. Once again, that top mark, that top corner of the G rectangle is not going to meet the other corner of the L rectangle. It's going to be laying across the top. Then you're going to sew on the line that you marked on both of those lines, and then we're going to trim off 1/4 of an inch and press those open. So let me get those trimmed off real quick. You're just going to make sure before you trim it that once you've pressed it, basically it's going to open up and make another L rectangle size. So that's going to go there. It's going to just be pressed open just like that. And this side gets pressed open just like that. So let me get these pressed real quick, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to put this together with some of the other elements. All right, so I've got them pressed open. Now the next step is to take one of your Q squares that's part of the red jar, and you've marked a line diagonally corner to corner, and you're going to place that Q square on the opposite corner of where the background rectangle was placed. So you're going to do that on both of these, and then you're going to sew on that line, and then we're going to trim away from that line. So let me go ahead and get these sewn together real quick. Okay, so this is what they finish like. So you'll notice that there's the red triangle in one corner, the background in the other, and this right here is the most difficult part of the entire thing. The rest of it is just doing your squares, sewing on the line, trimming, and pressing open. So I'm going to walk you through some of this. But these two are going to be placed on the outside, and then we've got one more of these pieces to make. You'll notice that I took this rectangle and I've got the squares on the bottom left and bottom right corners of this rectangle here. I've sewn them on. I'm going to trim them a 1/4 inch away and press them open. All right, so I gave that a good press. So this is going to be, and if you'll notice here, this is going to be this row of piecing right here. That's basically kind of like the little bottom fabric of the jar that the lid has some fabric over it. So that's what these pieces are for. So let's go ahead and get this red jar put together. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew all 4 of these pieces together, one after the other. You want to try to match up these triangles here as best you can. Also, you want to make sure that you use a very accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. Don't be too big, don't be too small. If you're a little too small, this piece is going to be too wide for the jar. If you're too big, it's going to be too small. So it needs to be a pretty accurate 1/4 inch seam allowance. I admit mine gets a little off on occasion, and that's okay. We can make it work. So take your time, sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, put all 4 of these pieces together. I'm going to put these together and then press them open and show you what that looks like whenever I come back. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and put all 4 of those pieces together. One of the things that I did do was I went ahead and I pressed these seams open because they can get kind of bulky on the back side of this. So I would recommend, at least for this segment of this block, pressing the seams to where they're open completely will work better for you. It's not necessary, but like I said, it's one of those things that I prefer to do for this little segment on its own. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to finish out this block. Now for the bottom of this jar, and for each of the jars, you'll see that I've already gone ahead and sewn on these squares here. This is the F square that we have drawn the line corner to corner on, and then put it right sides together, stitch on the line, and go ahead and trim a 1/4 inch away and then press them open. So each of the jars is going to have one of these triangles in each of the bottom corners. We're going to add this rectangle to the side of this jar, and then we're going to add the top of the jar to that whole piece right there. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down the side of each one of these, of each side of the jar. And then we're going to come back and I'll show you what it's going to look like whenever we add this piece to the top of it. Okay, so here's the bottom of the jar here. I'm just going to take this piece, put it on, sew it a 1/4 inch all the way across. Okay, and then like I said, we're going to press this open, and I'm going to press it to the jar side so that I don't have to worry about folding back all those bulky seams. Okay, so you can see now how I've gone ahead and I've pressed to the jar side so that I don't have all of these seams that are really bulky. And the next thing I'm going to do is put together the green jar. Now the blue jar and the green jar are put together exactly the same. So whatever you do for one, you're going to do for the other. Once again, I've started by sewing these F squares onto the bottom of the jar. And then I've made one of my little jar fabric pieces. I've gone ahead and sewn the S squares, these green squares, to the bottom of those. So once again, you're going to mark a diagonal line corner to corner, place it on the bottom right corner, and then place the other one on the bottom left corner. And then we're going to trim 1/4 inch away and then iron it open. So let me do that real quick. So then we're going to make 2 of these for each of the jars. So we've got those 2, and the next is the little side area. So the first thing I did was I took a green square, put it on the bottom left of one of these rectangles, took the other one, put it on the bottom right of the other rectangle so that they are opposite each other. Once you do that, sew it on the line, trim it a 1/4 inch away, then grab one of your F squares and you're going to put that in the top right corner, the opposite corner of the green here, and we're going to sew on the line, we're going to trim it, and then we're going to press it. Okay, so now that I've got that finished, now we're going to put the top, this part of the jar, just like we did for the red jar. So we're going to go ahead and sew all 4 of these pieces together. Then I'm also going to add to the bottom part of this jar these two rectangles to either side so that this piece is going to match up with this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sew all 4 of these together. I'm going to press them once again like I did with the red jar. I'm going to press my seams open so that it makes it less bulky. And then I'm going to sew these on, press the fabric open, and then sew them all together. So give me just a moment, let me get that done, and I'll show you what most of that finished jar looks like. Okay, so now that I've got those parts sewn together and pressed open, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through doing the tops of the jars. So each one, you'll notice that the blue and the green jars have a red top and the red jar has the blue top. So you're going to sew those 2 rectangles together for each one of those. And then you're going to add another square on each side, and that's going to add to the green jar. I've also done it to the blue jar. The red jar, we've got these rectangles that are going to be added to either side because the red jar is larger, so then everything's going to fit together underneath of that long rectangle there. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this together. Then I'm going to sew each of the jars together to each other. 1/4 inch seam allowance the whole way. Like I said, make sure that your 1/4 inch seam allowance is very accurate. So I'm going to go ahead and put this segment together, show you what that looks like whenever I come back, and then we'll finish out the entire thing. Okay, so whenever we put that top row of the jar lid on for the top of the red jar lid, first we want to make sure that the blue stripe is up against the gingham so that it's in between the two, and then you're going to center it in the middle there, making sure that the top of this lid meets up with that part right there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in either side of these just to make sure it all goes together where I want it to go. And then I'm going to sew this together, 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down, and then press it open. Okay, so now that we've got that top of the lid, top of the red jar lid on, and we've got everything pressed, now it's time to add the side borders and then the top and bottom borders. Now, it's very simple. We're going to put these sides on first. We're going to attach it here, 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down. I'm not going to bore you with making you watch me sew all these on because it's kind of boring. So after I get these side ones on, I'll press it open and then I'll put the top and bottom ones on, and I'll show you how to finish the entire accessory, adding the backing and the snaps. So come back whenever we've got that done. All right. So now that I have all of my borders put on and my jars are in the correct spots, I'm going to now go ahead and add my lightweight fusible interfacing to the back side of this piece. And that's going to help stabilize everything, make it just a little bit stiffer. So I've cut my interfacing to 6.5 by 15.5 because the finished size of this accessory is a 6 by 15. So got my stabilizer there. Make sure that whenever you do this, we've talked about this before, but the bumpy side is the glue side. So make sure the bumpy side is on the back side of your fabrics, not facing up where your iron is going to touch it, and also not on the front side of your fabrics because you won't get that apart. You'll end up having to make a whole nother accessory block. So we get that on there. I always like to press it from both sides. That way it just makes sure that everything is nice and stuck on there. All right. Once we've got that, then we're going to take our backing fabric, which is of course included in the kit. Don't forget your interfacing and your backing fabric is also included in your kit. And then you're going to lay this on here just so that it matches up with all of the edges. Once again, that's cut to the same size as your accessory is. And then I do like to either pin or clip. Sometimes I like to clip better than I like to pin because I have stuck myself with the pin so many times. But I'll go around and clip all the way around. Then we're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way around, but we want to leave a little bit of an opening so we can turn this right side out. Once we get that sewn all the way around, clip the corners, reduce some of the bulk, get it turned right side out, and then it's time to insert the snaps. So I'm not going to walk you or show you all of that, but I know that we've shown you how to put these snaps on before. These finger snaps are really, really easy. They're a little plastic finger snap. They don't really need a tool to punch a hole in anything in order to install them. But your kit is going to include 2 sets of snaps. That way we can put one in each corner. Okay, so each set we have 2 sets, and each set is going to have a socket and a stud. The socket is what we've installed in our pillow on the top, and the stud is on the bottom, but you do want to double check. You might have accidentally installed them opposite. If you've installed them opposite, just make sure that you put the other one, the opposite one, on your accessory. So this right here is the under pressure pillow accessory. It is the 3rd accessory that we've done in the Back Home Pillow series. The kits are available on our website. Make sure you head on over there. Everything that you need to make this accessory is in the kit, including the backing, the interfacing, and your snaps, and the patterns included. So check out our website. Link to that is in the description box below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our videos, and thank you so much for watching.
Okay, you wicked cool quilters, good job. You made it to the end. We would like to thank our sponsors, Husqvarna Viking Sewing Machines and Creative Grids, rulers, rotary cutters, and mats. Thanks for watching.